It is once again that the season, autumn, has arrived. The leaves are changing hues. They are cascading down. The air is becoming a touch cooler. And here comes that holiday once more. What is it about this holiday? Skeletons. A skeleton. A horse skeleton. A skeleton mounted on a horse skeleton, a dog skeleton. How tragic. What does that signify? A ghost, naturally. And spiders, of course. I detest spiders. What is it about this holiday? There seems to be something unhealthy about it. What could it be? All right, what is the essence of this? What is Halloween? Is it a delightful, pleasant holiday? Is it associated with satanic practices? Should the faithful partake in it? And what actions should you take? Halloween, Christians, Satan. We are about to unravel the enigma of Halloween and what you ought to understand. To begin with, ponder this. We have a holiday that emphasizes darkness, malevolence, witches, the occult, monsters, mortality, graveyards, skeletons, phantoms, spirits. And we are expected to say, well, that's precisely the kind of experience I want my child to engage in. Malevolence, witchcraft, spirits, death, graveyards, the undead. That's exactly what I've been seeking for my child. And what are the children meant to do? They often don costumes of sinister figures, frequently as deceased beings or phantoms, and they venture door to the residences of strangers. What a splendid idea! Young children and unfamiliar faces. This remarkable pairing. And at night approaching strangers under the cover of darkness. And what instructions do we give the children? We tell them to say trick or treat. What does that imply? Well, if you do not provide us with a treat, we shall enact a trick upon you. We will cause some harm. Now, there is a term for that. It is called extortion. Thus, your children are to don the guise of malevolent beings. They are to visit the homes of strangers and threaten them with extortion. What a wholesome holiday this is, teaching your children invaluable lessons on how to extort from strangers, and for what purpose? To acquire candy, sweets. So you return home with a bag full of confections. Let us remember this, and hopefully there's nothing in there that some deranged individual slipped in that shouldn't be there. Then you indulge in the sweets and set yourself up for diabetes. And if that's not enough, it's also intertwined. It introduced a mischievous aspect along with vandalism, throwing eggs at cars, wrapping toilet paper around neighbors' trees, and more. I mean, not that I ever did such things before I found the Lord, but this is the reality now. So, let's recap. You're sending your kids out to celebrate a holiday that revolves around evil, darkness, witches, spirits, and death, likely dressing up as sinister beings, visiting strangers' homes, engaging in extortion or vandalism, and then facing diabetes. We're raising a generation of diabetic extortionists. What a fantastic holiday this is! And for your children, you might be wondering, why didn't I think of this? This is Jonathan Kahn. Picture a world of insects where the insects celebrate a holiday. It's a holiday for dead insects, and they rejoice over crushed insects, celebrate decapitated insects, insect skulls, and exoskeletons. What would that signify? It would indicate that there are some truly disturbed bugs in need of therapy. It would suggest something is fundamentally wrong. Well, that's Halloween. That's what we're doing, celebrating dead people, corpses, skulls, and skeletons. It signifies that something is amiss. Now, we're going to delve into the mystery of Halloween and truly understand what it's about and what we need to grasp. First, let's quickly consider, is it possible that there are avatars of gods or spirits on earth right now? Speaking of Halloween, even in the American political arena, was there an ancient scripture recited at the time of Trump's birth that actually holds the mystery of Trump? These are some of the mysteries that will be unveiled in the Avatar. It's my latest and most explosive book, available everywhere. Check it out online. If you come across this cover, it means you need to ensure you don't overlook these prophetic messages and updates right here. Subscribe now. And just imagine standing on the Mount of Olives being anointed, sailing on the Sea of Galilee, and entering the holy city of Jerusalem. I'll share more about this on the Israel Super Tour later, but for now, visit the site at Jonathan Connors. Come, or we'll provide more details later. Alright? I recall being a young child around 5 years old with a little girl also about 5 who was the daughter of my parents' friends, along with her little brother who was about 3. Our parents let us venture out into the neighborhood to go trick or treating by ourselves. They reminded us, keep an eye on the little boy. And I thought, well, who's watching over us? But that was a different America. In fact, the changes in Halloween reflect what has happened to America since the late 1960s. Back then, America spent between 100 to 300 million annually on costumes and masks. Now, Halloween has transformed into a 13 billion industry. It has skyrocketed. Previously, when you thought of holiday decorations for a home or yard, you primarily thought of Christmas, maybe a bit of Easter, but mostly Christmas. However, today, spending on Halloween decorations has reached 50% of what is spent on Christmas. 50 cents, I see Halloween skeletons everywhere at Home Depot. And these aren't the small paper skeletons we might remember. These are enormous 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, even 15 feet and 20 feet tall skeletons. Many of them are larger than Christmas trees. So on one hand, America has been removing Christ from Christmas, taking Jesus, the Messiah, Yeshua, out of the holiday and secularizing it, while simultaneously America has been increasingly embracing Halloween, the dark holiday, not by eliminating its darkness, but by allowing it to become even darker and darker. Could this indicate a sign of America's decline? You see, when you turn away from God, other deities and spirits take their place. Halloween embodies the arrival of these gods or spirits. When you distance yourself from God, paganism fills the void. Halloween stands as our most significant pagan holiday. How can we be sure? Let's delve into it. What exactly is Halloween? What does it truly represent? Halloween, an unusual name for a holiday, as holo signifies holy, holo, as in hallowed be thy name. Thus it is sacred. The term Halloween refers to the evening, making it the holy evening or the evening of the sacred. It is connected to All Saints' Day, which is said to honor the saints, particularly the deceased ones. However, this too seems to have origins in a pagan festival, a Roman celebration of the dead. Halloween is deeply rooted in Gaelic traditions, particularly in Ireland and Scotland among the Celtic pagan cultures. It signified the onset of the darker half of the year. During this period, it was believed that the boundary between our world and the spirit realm became thin, allowing spirits to enter and become active. Which spirits? The spirits of the deceased and the ancient pagan gods, which can be quite troubling. The demonic entities come forth, and to placate these spirits, people often feel fear on Halloween. They would offer sacrifices similar to how one would offer to God. They would present food and drink as offerings, akin to the modern trick or treat. The tradition of Halloween has also long included practices of divination, where occult fires were lit for protection. An ancient aspect of Halloween was known as guising, where individuals would don disguises or costumes representing the spirits or souls of the departed, going from house to house. So it was also known as being connected to a practice called souling, where people would recite verses that had a pagan vibe. They believed that by coming as the spirits of the dead, they would receive food offerings to prevent misfortune from entering their homes. That's where the idea of trick or treat comes from, having kids dress up. That stems from the tradition of dressing as spirits, ghosts, gods, or demons. They would go door to door asking for treats as offerings to the gods or spirits to keep their homes safe. Trick or treat is not just a coincidence. Halloween is still tied to the dead because that's its origin. It's not a departure from that. It's rooted in a pagan holiday about the spirits of the dead. The Bible mentions that behind these gods are what the Hebrew calls shadim. In Greek, this translates to demonia, which refers to demonic spirits. The spirits behind these gods were indeed spirits, and it warns us to steer clear of these things. Now, how did this tradition make its way to America? When Irish and Scottish immigrants arrived, they brought Halloween with them. So, to my Irish and Scottish friends, we need to have a conversation. We need to sit down and discuss this with love. Just look at what has unfolded. Beyond its pagan origins, there's a connection to the satanic realm. Halloween is also associated with satanic worship. It's a holiday celebrated by witches and Satanists alike. It's been referred to as one of the 4 major witches' Sabbaths, a significant day on the satanic calendar. On Halloween, spells are cast, ceremonies take place, and dark magic is practiced involving rituals that include blood, sexuality, and demons. This is not a healthy holiday. So, what should believers do? What should our stance be regarding Halloween? Should believers participate in it at all, even a little? Well, think about this. Imagine if Halloween never existed and suddenly it was created today. They have created a new holiday that is connected to spirits and demons, where people dress up as these entities, reflecting the original tradition of appearing as a demon, spirit, or deceased individual. You might not think, that sounds like a fantastic idea, let's embrace it. If you are a Christian trying to follow God, how should you approach Halloween? First, there are two extremes or sins to consider. The first involves engaging with evil, aligning yourself with darkness or the appearance of evil, as stated in the Bible. The second sin is judging others whom you believe are involved in sin or darkness, even if they may not be. The first sin relates to the pagan world or apostasy, while the second pertains to the sin of the Pharisee. We should aim to steer clear of both should you participate in Halloween. Everything I've mentioned indicates that Halloween is heavily linked to darkness due to its origins, imagery, themes, and associated practices. Even the original practices suggest that believers should refrain from participating. We are instructed to avoid anything related to darkness and to steer clear of even the appearance of evil. Halloween is significantly tied to darkness and the appearance of evil. However, there is another perspective to consider. Does the association of a particular day with pagan origins or practices mean it must always be evil? Not necessarily. For instance, Christmas has pagan connections, and some believers choose to avoid it for that reason, which is their prerogative. Paul stated that if one believer regards one day as more significant than others, they should do so for the Lord. Conversely, if another believer treats all days equally, they should also do so for the Lord. We should not judge one another. As each person is a servant of God, you should not judge them. If a believer chooses not to participate in Christmas due to its pagan connections with December 25th, and they do so to honor God, then let them do so for the Lord. Do not judge them, as you cannot see their heart. God knows it, and they are His servants. Conversely, if a believer wishes to celebrate Christmas in recognition of the birth of the Messiah and does so to glorify the Lord, let them also do so for the Lord without judgment. You cannot know their heart. They are God's servant and God knows them. Just because a day or holiday may have pagan roots does not inherently make that day evil. It might be, but if you adhere to that belief, you would find it impossible to engage in any activities on any day. For example, Monday is named after the moon, which was worshipped. Tuesday is named after a Germanic god. Wednesday is named after another Germanic or Teutonic god, Woden. Thursday is named after Thor. Friday is associated with the goddess Freyja. Saturday is linked to the worship of Saturn. And Sunday is named after the sun. Therefore, having pagan associations does not mean you should refrain from doing anything on that day or observing it. If that were the case, you would have to isolate yourself in a room, close the curtains, and hope it all passes. However, Halloween is in a category of its own. While Christmas may have some pagan associations, they are not central to its Christian significance, which is the birth of the Messiah. In contrast, Halloween represents darkness, witchcraft, and death. This is not an ancillary aspect, it is at the very core of what Halloween signifies, making it difficult to justify participation in it. As children, we dressed up, and at that time I did not know the Lord, but we enjoyed dressing up and collecting candy. Indeed, that was our line of thought. Furthermore, God observes the intentions of the heart. Conversely, let us consider a scenario where one resides in biblical times in ancient Israel during a festival dedicated to Baal. In this context, all the worshippers of Baal are engaged in their rituals, offering sacrifices to a bull-headed deity Baal. They present various offerings, including children, don pagan attire, and perform dances around the flames. Now, suppose you are not inclined to worship Baal, yet you seek enjoyment, as any individual from that era would. We appreciate festivities after all. Thus, while you refrain from sacrificing animals or children, you allow your children to don bull-headed costumes and possess a bull-headed lamp or candle that you illuminate. You engage in dances and mimic the act of offering sacrifices, enjoying food or sweets without actually performing the sacrifices. The question arises, does any child of God truly have the right to partake in such activities, particularly when aware of their significance? I would argue no. I do not intend to judge the heart, and it is likely that some Christians are unaware of these associations. However, to participate in a pagan holiday and engage in practices that are intrinsically linked to paganism, such as dressing as the deceased and soliciting treats, mirrors the actions of the original pagan celebrations. To me, this approach is perilously close to embracing darkness. Even if one's motivations differ, do you believe God would have been pleased to witness his ancient followers engaging in the rituals associated with Baal worship during a Baal festival? I think not. Therefore, the most prudent course of action is to completely abstain from such practices. Simultaneously, it is essential to avoid adopting a Pharisaical attitude and condemning those who do partake. Instead, one should offer prayers for them. For those who need guidance, it doesn't imply that everyone is mistaken. Should we just stay indoors on Halloween, close the curtains and wish it away? Well, you could choose that route. However, keep in mind that October 31st is not inherently sinful. It is a day created by God just like every other day. The earth belongs to the Lord along with everything in it. It's similar to the argument that you can't worship God on Sunday because it has pagan associations. So, does that mean worshiping God on any day is sinful? I don't think so. So, what alternatives do believers have? There is a way, and that is to redeem the day. Some churches offer alternatives like harvest festivals or other events, providing children with activities that steer them away from the darker aspects of Halloween. These events are centered around God. Some may criticize this by saying, you're just doing it because of Halloween. But if you're bringing God's light into the darkness, that's wonderful. If your event is for God, about God, and dedicated to God, then God bless you. I can envision Paul doing something similar. I can picture him saying, the pagan world may worship their gods, but we will have our own celebration for the one true God, and we will invite our pagan neighbors to join us and learn about Him. Do you really think Paul wouldn't have done that? If you believe he wouldn't use a day associated with paganism for God's glory, then you don't truly understand Paul. He was the one who quoted a pagan hymn to Zeus in a place called Mars Hill to speak of God. Paul believed in using all things and all means to save some for God. There are believers who distribute tracts on Halloween, which is fantastic. And there are children who choose not to go trick or treating. They engage in tracts, treats, or both. Children don costumes as biblical figures to spread the gospel. We must refrain from associating with darkness. Therefore, avoid the shadows of Halloween and instead utilize the day to exalt God. However you choose to do this, I commend you. Redeem the occasion. This year, Halloween occurs on a Friday. At Beth Israel, the congregation I lead in Wayne, New Jersey, one of our primary services is on Friday night. Thus, we will host an anti-Halloween service. No tricks, only treats. The word, the worship, the power of God and the gospel will be present. And, of course, the Spirit we embrace is the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of the living God. Whatever you choose to do this Halloween or any Halloween, ensure it glorifies God. Whether you completely distance yourself from the festivities or redeem the circumstances, your aim should be to honor God. This is a daily commitment. If you glorify God by avoiding Halloween, I applaud you. God bless you. Conversely, if you choose to redeem the occasion by organizing an event that brings light and purpose to it for God, I commend you as well. God bless you in your endeavors. And remember, refrain from judging others. I will soon share a word from the Lord, but first consider the avatars of spirits present in your world today, including the American political landscape. Can you envision the avatars of divine spirits or the ancient scriptures that were recited globally at the time of Trump's birth, revealing the mysteries surrounding him and the myriad events unfolding? This is explored in my latest, most explosive book, The Avatar. It is available everywhere. If you spot this cover, seize it. Acquire it for those in your life as well. To ensure you receive these prophetic messages and updates, subscribe now. Lastly, can you fathom being anointed on the Mount of Olives, sailing across the Sea of Galilee? Are you preparing to enter the sacred city of Jerusalem? Allow me to share details about the remarkable Israel Super Tour. I will be leading this extraordinary journey this upcoming spring, and I encourage you to join. The previous tour I conducted was completely booked, leaving no room for additional participants. However, this one still has availability at this moment. Simply visit jonathancanuptours.com. That's jonathancanuptours.com. And now a message for you. Remember to don the full armor of God, so you can stand resolute against the deceptions of the devil. Our battle is not against mere flesh and blood, but against the rulers, the authorities, the dark forces of this world, and the spiritual wickedness in high places. Equip yourself with the full armor of God, my friends, so that you may withstand in the evil day. After you have done everything, stand firm. Until we meet again, this is Jonathan Kahn reminding you to be strong in the Lord, my friend, and